Now, roadworks, traffic, poor road surfaces, inconsiderate driving, the kind of things we encounter on our commute to work every day, and isn't it frustrating? There are more drivers than ever, with 7 million people in the UK holding a driving licence, and they're all in a hurry to get somewhere fast. A recent study has revealed that more than 5 million drivers admitted causing road rage by tailgating, gesticulating and speeding, all of which can lead to potentially violent encounters. So, are we becoming more inconsiderate on the roads? Our reporter Lisa Summers asked some road users what really drives them crazy.
People in roadworks who shoot up in the lane, they know the lane's closing off and they go right up to the cones and then force their way in. Hate it with a passion. I'll toot my horn and flash my lights and maybe do other things that we don't want to discuss.
People that don't indicate drives me bananas, especially if they're turning right and they just stop. Definitely makes the blood boil. I think my patience has run out with them now. But I wouldn't stop because it's not worth it, because you'd end up in a fight probably.
Mobile phones especially, one hand in the wheel, and in some cases no hands in the wheel.
Down the motorway too, you get, people dodging in and out. That just really annoys me, something awful, because you never know when they're coming back in again.
Do you ever do anything about it? Do you toot your horn or you just let them get on with it?
No, I'm a lady. No, really. I just go, oh, that's about all.
Very restrained. Well, that's a taste of what revs you up there. So many of you are frustrated by bad driving, in fact, that website peeppeep.co.uk has now received more than 500,000 hits since it was set up in January. Well, this afternoon, Lisa is out near some particularly bad roadworks. Lisa, where are you?
Well, if I can be pretty much precise, I'm probably about 2 miles or so away from the Kincardine Bridge at the site of some very significant roadworks that are going to take over a year to complete. They're building a huge roundabout and interchange which is going to coincide with the building of a second Kincardine Bridge. So when it's finished, everybody's going to be really happy, but on a commute through this part of the world of any morning or evening, and a lot of tempers are frayed. In fact, if anybody's passing and wants to just give me a wee friendly wave, then I'll know you're listening. Even a wee friendly toot won't go down bad in amongst the din of all the roadworks. But that's where I am today. I've been doing a bit of a tour, really, I suppose, of road rage trouble spots over the last couple of days. And yesterday I went out with George Goldie and also Ben Devlin from the Institute of Advanced Motorists, just to have a little skirt around North Ayrshire in order to see whether anybody was misbehaving on the roads yesterday.
We're going to head down to Irvine. There's a number of roundabouts down there, and they seem to antagonise many road users. They get very upset at one another, so it should be quite an interesting little trip. Just coming up to a very large roundabout here on the north side of Irvine. We're approaching the roundabout here. There's a vehicle right in front of us. We're approaching this very large roundabout, looking off to the right. There's nothing coming at all, but the car in front still stops to see if there's any chance of anything coming round the roundabout justifying the stop. Generally what gets people annoyed on roundabouts is the lack of signalling on roundabouts. Everyone's supposed to be a mind reader and just look at the vehicle and imagine where it's going. Lack of signalling on roundabouts gets everybody annoyed.
Ben is driving the car today. Ben, I happen to know that as a young driver you're somebody that has seen the light. Anything
that didn't go the way I perceived it to go, or in any way I didn't plan to go, really just sort of irritated me, and instead of simply sort of dismissing it and realising that everyone's human and therefore everyone can make a mistake, it just seemed to rub me up the wrong way. There was 2 separate occasions where I actually opened the car door and had a toe-to-toe with someone sitting on a motorway slip road. It wasn't far off a full-blown punch-up for something that...
Well, what did you do?
I can't actually remember. That is the problem, and that just sort of shows you how irrelevant the whole incident was.
We're hearing about Ben's experience here, and it's not uncommon, and it would appear that more and more people are getting involved in these sorts of incidents. What do you put it down to?
It's just an attitude, it's pure selfishness. I think a good analogy there is if you look at any supermarket where the supermarket is absolutely full of shoppers and trolleys. They come face to face, they'll apologise, oh I'm sorry, excuse me, I'll go round about you. That does not transfer to the road, and even on a busy pavement you'll hear people apologising for bumping into one another, for getting in front of someone, apologies left, right and centre because they're willing to share the pavement and get out of anyone else's way. But whenever they get behind the wheel of a car and they're in their enclosed little steel box, they're immune to the comments from everyone else, and that's when their selfishness just manifests itself and they just are not prepared to share the road with anyone else.
Let me ask both you and Ben about what your biggest pet hates are amongst other drivers.
I think my biggest hate is just driving vehicles behind driving too close to me, or vehicles in front of me queuing up so close to one another that they don't have time to react to anything, and each one is dependent on what the vehicle in front is doing, whereas if they would just hold back a wee bit they could react themselves, decide what they want to do and not have to do exactly what the car in front is doing.
Biggest pet hate on the road, a lack of courtesy. I'm a very strong believer in if I offer someone to come out, flash them to indicate them to take up some position on the road, then a little hand gesture to thank me for that would go a million miles to please me and sort of make me feel worthwhile and part of the road going community.
That he had initiated at one time or other a road rage incident. Much better driver now that he's passed his Institute of Advanced Motorist certificate. He's one of only 16% of us that will actually say we have initiated some sort of road rage incident. But having said that, nearly half of us actually think that we have been the victim of road rage. So there does seem to be some anecdotal evidence out there that there are more and more of these incidents. And certainly if you speak to Ian Kinsley, who's with me at the moment from peep.co.uk that you mentioned earlier, well, over 500,000 hits in just a matter of months because your website was just set up at the start of the year. Ian, remind us why you felt the need to set up this site.
I thought that there was a need for somewhere for people to be able to vent their annoyance and frustration, so I thought the internet was the best way to do that. As was said by one of the previous people, it's not a good idea to confront people. In this day and age you hear of horror stories of incidents that become violent, so I thought the internet and being able later to post on the internet what happened and how you felt about it was a much safer and a much more sensible way of allowing people to vent their annoyance and frustration.
Have you noticed any particular parts of Scotland that there are more people that have to get this off their chest than others?
The members that we have nearly 2,000 members just now. A lot of it revolves around the Glasgow, Edinburgh, Stirling and Perth directions, and a lot of the major trunk roads, the M9, M8, A9, those kind of roads are certainly very frequently mentioned and reported on the website.
One of the things that wasn't mentioned there was my pet hate, which I feel I have to just bring up, given that, we're getting things off our chest today. I can't stand when people hog the outside lane when you're driving along a two-lane motorway like the M8. Is that going to be one of the most common things that irks people?
It arises on the website, but it's not. I wouldn't say it's one of the most frequent. Tailgating undoubtedly is a very frequent one. People who overtake on the left-hand side, maybe because of people that are hogging the lane, those are much more frequent. And certainly the one that was mentioned, people who will not get in line and merge with the traffic and who go up the outside lane and then try and barge their way into a queue.
Yeah, but actually, if you look at I'm not saying I've done this, but if you look at roadwork signs, it always says use both lanes, so eventually you have to filter into one lane.
I think that's right, but I think well after the time when it begins to say merge, and usually the signs are nowadays much more helpful. They say one at a time. It sort of encourages people to let one driver in. But some people are clearly not interested in that. There's a lack of courtesy, there's a selfishness, and people try and barge their way in. And I think we all enjoy when lorries go over both lanes and refuse to let anybody in. And again, sometimes our members would be saying on the website, do this. They would proactively encourage people to do that, and I certainly wouldn't discourage that.
Shireen, what's your pet hate on the road?
Tailgating is mine, and mobile phones. But I sense that you feel a lot better now. It's very cathartic to get all your pet hates off your chest, isn't it, Lisa?
I'm feeling really good for this, I have to admit, and I think maybe I better go and sign on to the website, become a member, because actually one other thing I was going to just mention, Ian, briefly before we kind of move on to the general debate, is actually you are doing quite practical things now. So people, it's not just about road rage. If people do have problems, then you're able to sort of register your complaint and you'll put them in touch with relevant people.
Yes, there's a section on the website called Take Action, which makes it much easier to report road faults, potholes, street lights that don't work, traffic lights where the lamps are no longer working, poor road signage. So what happens is people prepare a report, and if they do it through peatpeat.co.uk, then they send it directly to the responsible council, but it also posts it on the website, which means that other members can jump in and also maybe contact the council and say, yes, I experienced that, I've got the same problem, please do something about it. So it is constructive as well.
Yeah, see, that's something for me for another day, is potholes, but we'll come back to that discussion in just a minute. What, you want to say one more thing?
Just one more thing is that about 10% of our reports are positive as well. I mean, you see, if you read local newspapers, then you see people say, I had an accident, thanks very much to the kindly people that helped me. But our website, you know, you're dependent upon the editor publishing your letter and hoping that someone reads it. Again, our website allows people to make positive comments, so there's about 10% of our reports are people thanking people for considerate driving, thanking them for allowing them out of queued traffic and whatever, so it's not all negative.
Well, that's nice.
One of those people, yeah.
That's nice to know, but to cure your road rage, Lisa, keep listening, because here in the studio we have Simon Leila, who runs anti-road rage classes, and Professor Steve Stradling is in Edinburgh. He's a transport psychologist from Napier University. Simon Leila, first of all, is this becoming a very lucrative business for you? Road rage classes?
It's becoming more lucrative, yes. Essentially, we put together a course a couple of years ago with our partners Accident, who are the driving experts in that particular course that we run. And our clients approached us and said, you know, we want you to do something for, in those days, for fleet drivers, but we also now offer them to members of the public. And what we do on those courses is we look at the driving theory and the defensive theory, both from the concepts and the logic that the Institute of Advanced Driving covers, and we also look at the practicalities of personal security. Then what we do with that course, we then give all of the delegates, there's only ever 12 on a course, practical self-defence in a classroom in the first half of the day. So we deal with all the worst possible problems in terms of also using punches, kicking, knives, guns, bats, wheel braces, etc. Then what we do after a nice hearty lunch is we split the group into two. So we have 6 who go out on the road with 3 professional drivers, and they do 2.5 hours of advanced driving techniques. They also have built into that driving experience not only looking in the usual advanced driving concepts of further down the road, looking at all the aspects, you're also looking at security aspects. So if you're 2 o'clock in the morning, you're driving down the road, then you're looking not only for vehicle problems, but you're also looking for maybe a group of people 400 yards up on the right at a bus stop that look like there may be an incident that could be a fight over spilling. So you could avoid that by turning left or right, because as you approach, you could be getting into a road rage situation.
But what about actual anger management? Do you deal with that?
Yes, we deal with the anger management. We have a piece, it'd be interesting to see what the psychologist says on this from Aberdeen. We have a piece around some psychology techniques that we had completed for reframing, repositioning. We look at our own behaviour, not just that of the people who you believe have road raged against you, because the statistics earlier were quite interesting, and then they said, you know, 16% admit it, but 50% have had it.
Yes.
So there is a sort of misbalance there. So we do very much look at your own behaviour, and very much a case of, you know, taking a deep breath. Reframing is the term, which I'm sure a psychologist will tell us more about, but looking at our own behaviour and trying to modify our own behaviour in aspects that we don't cause any road rage. And if we do make a mistake, human beings make mistakes, and they are in this vehicle that, you know, they do feel extra secure and cosy, which one of the speakers mentioned earlier. So in essence, if you make a mistake, admit it, wave, say sorry, don't put the finger up.
Okay, well, let's hear from our transport psychologist from Napier University, Professor Stradling. Can you explain to us a bit about the psychology behind road rage, the red mist that comes down?
Yeah, sure. Hi.
Hi.
Anger is a response to threat. And the studies that we did, we looked at what makes drivers angry on the road, and we found 4 general sets of circumstances. The most frequent, the least annoying, are those things that impede my progress. It's a kind of Magnuson effect. I've started, so I'll finish. So roadworks, potholes, roundabouts, traffic lights, people not moving off quick enough from traffic lights, cyclists wobbling the road, anything that slows me down. Next up were the kind of instability that involves ignoring my presence, acting as if I wasn't there. So examples of this would be somebody coming up behind you at night, but they don't dim their headlights, or driving somebody backs out of a driveway in front of you without looking. Hey, I'm here. What about me? So that's kind of threatening to my identity. And the next up was threatening my safety, which is people driving too fast or undertaking, or one of the examples at the head of the beast, using a mobile phone, which we know makes it 4 times more likely to be involved in a crash. And right at the top of the scale, the least frequent but the most anger-making are things like sounding your horn, somebody shouts at you about your driving, somebody beeps at you about your driving, somebody makes an obscene gesture to you about your driving.
I think we all recognise that one. Is it on the increase, though?
Sorry?
Is it on the increase?
Who knows? Who knows? I mean, in the studies we've done, we've found that tailgating was the most frequent, the most common complaint, and next was pinching my parking space. And of course, those who park in disabled parking spaces, they can be a particular source of annoyance as well. That's a slightly different matter. But as I say, at the top of the scale are things that question my competence as a driver, because we find that an awful lot of drivers, more males than females, of course, but an awful lot of drivers, it's very important to them that they're seen and see themselves as a good driver.
Is it a power thing?
I think there's undoubtedly a bit of bullying on the road, and of course that varies with size of vehicle. I do remember a traffic cop saying to me a number of years ago, Steve, HGVs, lorries on the road, of course they have right of weight. So you don't argue with it. The lorry says I'm going there, then you let it go. I think quite a lot of it is to do with notions of equity, unfairness, and entitlement. For example, the very first example from Lisa about pulsing your way in to a roadworks. Yes, that's not fair. I've queued. They haven't. Other examples would be being taken by surprise when the driver in front of you decides to turn right but doesn't signal. And again, in general, psychologists would say that what we're dealing with there is uncertainty, and uncertainty creates anxiety. And one of the things one wants to avoid in one's daily life is feeling anxious. So things like insufficient communication, or one lady driver said at the top of the piece, on the motorway, people dodging in and out, and you don't know when they're coming back in. That's kind of uncertainty. Puts us on edge.
Yeah, we're having problems with the line now. You're putting me on edge by listing all these things. But thanks very much. We've identified a lot of the things that get us going, and hopefully a few tips to avoid them. Thanks to Simon Leila, Professor Stephen Stradling, and also to Ian Kindley of the website peeppeep.co.uk.